Welcome everyone to another illuminating discussion. Today, we'll be delving into the heart of a cinematic legend, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Let's begin by sharing our own personal connections to this interstellar tale.
Thank you, Hal. I'll start us off. Jane Austen and Star Wars might seem worlds apart, but the romantic escapism is what initially captivated me. And like Elizabeth Bennet finds her Mr. Darcy, I found my childhood hero in Luke Skywalker.
Charming, but perhaps a wee bit idealistic. My first Star Wars experience was about deflecting the hype. It's a popcorn flick, lads and ladies, thrilling, but stuffed with more cheese than a stuffed crust pizza.
Now, Lenny, there's no denying the cheese factor, but Star Wars has undeniably shaped our culture. From fashion to music, it's woven into the fabric of society. I was awed by its reach into the arts from my very first viewing.
A valid point, Izzy. The saga's tentacles extend into nearly every artistic crevice. I remember witnessing its birth in '77, a breath of fresh air in the film industry, a surprising bloom in the garden of the silver screen.
Its influence is indisputable. Even those not fond of the Star Wars, right, Lenny?
Oh, tacitly. It's a universal phenomenon, as unavoidable as tax season, but influence does not equal unassailable quality.
However, you can't ignore the quality of its pioneering efforts in special effects. Those visuals coaxed the imaginations of countless creators.
Indeed, it was a harbinger of the potential within movie-making magic, modern mythology come to life.
Mythology, yes, fans latched onto it like it was an Arthurian legend, and can we blame them? It has a lure akin to the siren's call.
That's all well and good until you hit the rocks. Let's be honest, it's the simplicity of good versus evil that's enticing. Just don't expect a Nobel in literature.
At times, poignancy lies in simplicity, Lenny. But let's hold that thought. We have much to dissect, from the intricacies of character to the sweeping score that lingers long after the credits. Shall we proceed? Transitioning into our next topic, the cultural impact of Star Wars. This phenomenon has transcended cinema, reaching into diverse areas of our lives. Your thoughts?
Star Wars isn't just a movie. It has become a staple of modern mythology. Its narratives have become our narratives, universal themes that resonate on a global scale.
I won't argue against its reach, Amelia, but let's not confuse ubiquity with profundity. Star Wars is commercial success masquerading as cultural significance.
But Lenny, that commercial success sparked new ways of thinking in both technology and storytelling. It's a cultural cornerstone. Thousands of creators found their call in that galaxy far, far away.
Izzy highlights an important point. The birth of the blockbuster era dawned with Star Wars. Its innovations changed industry standards and audience expectations alike.
Exactly, Hal. And those blockbusters encourage community, the fandoms, the conventions, they're modern rituals where people unite over shared love, a new form of connection.
Community, sure, but also blind consumerism. It's difficult to see where the film ends and the merchandising begins. Perhaps an empire of its own, one could say.
Merchandising doesn't detract from the film's artistry, Lenny. If anything, it allows fans to take a piece of the magic home, to become part of the legacy.
And it is a legacy that continues to ignite the imaginations of the young and old. Its influence on science fiction and fantasy genres is indelible, leading many to discover the joys of reading and cinema.
Not just sci-fi and fantasy, but also in the realm of romance and human emotion. The bonds between characters, be they friendships or more, resonate because they are fundamentally human.
They resonate, yes, but let's not skirt around the edges of cliché. Its human emotion is served with a hefty side of melodrama.
Yet sometimes, Lenny, it's that melodrama that adds color to the vast canvas of popular culture. It's bold, it's brash, but it's unapologetically impactful.
So it seems, we can agree that whether through its direct narrative or its vast industrial wake, Star Wars has undeniably shaped the world as we see it. Shall we explore further into the realms of mythology next?
When discussing the mythology in Star Wars, we can't ignore the hero's journey. Luke's quest is archetypal, an ordinary individual drawn into an extraordinary world. Classic and captivating.
Quite so, Amelia. Lucas himself was inspired by Joseph Campbell's monomyth concept. It resonates because it's a timeless formula, a narrative that exists in countless cultures and eras.
And that universality, Hal, it's key to why Star Wars speaks to so many. No matter where you're from, there's something innately human about the call to adventure and self-discovery.
Humanity aside, doesn't it teeter on the mundane? We've seen the reluctant hero trope before. Star Wars dresses it up in cosmic garb, but strip that away, and what's left?
What's left, Lenny, is the essence of storytelling. You could say the same of any classic literature. Star Wars just proves these tales have power, even in modern settings.
Besides, it's not just about the journey. It's the growth, Lenny. It's about facing trials, finding allies, confronting inner demons, all aspects that define us.
Admirable, but predictable. Foregone conclusions at each turn. The mentor who dies, the shadowy villain with a familial twist. It's effective, sure, but not without its eye rolls.
You raise a fair skepticism, Lenny. Yet, what the hero's journey may lack in surprise, it makes up for in depth, allowing audiences to peer into psychological archetypes through the guise of fantasy.
And speaking of depth, Hal, the emotional undercurrent gives the story its heartbeat, touching those core ideals of love, hope, and redemption.
Indeed, Amelia, and through the galaxy's lens, Star Wars recreates the epic sagas of old, making ancient narratives accessible to a modern audience. Shall we proceed to dissect the figures that populate this grand journey next?
The ensemble cast of Star Wars is remarkable. Each character brings a different flavor, a unique perspective. Together, they form a tapestry, rich and complex, reflecting facets of us all.
Precisely. Take Leia, her blend of royal elegance and guerrilla grit. She's not just a princess to be rescued, she rescues herself. A truly inspiring figure in film.
Inspiring, yes, but let's not gloss over the cliches. The rogue with a heart of gold, the wise old sage. These characters are hardly breaking new ground, are they?
But Lenny, consider the context of their introductions. When we first met this cast, they embodied the familiar, but took those archetypes into a whole new space. Literally.
And the chemistry between them. The banter, the camaraderie, it feels organic, which is a testament to the writing and the actors' performances.
Organic? More like engineered. Every dialogue quip, every glance is calculated for maximum effect. Genuine, perhaps, but hardly spontaneous.
Yet, it works, Lenny. Viewers care about their interrelations because they're so well crafted. Show me someone who isn't moved by Han and Leia's exchange. I love you, and I know.
Amelia presents a compelling argument. It's the nuances of character interaction that echo through audiences. And let's not forget about Vader, the embodiment of terror, and yet so complex in his humanity.
Vader is the perfect foil to our hero's Hal. His towering presence is essential to the ensemble's dynamic, defining them even in his absence.
I concede Vader's impact, but one might argue we're only enticed because we're starved for substance in a saga so focused on spectacle.
Oh, Lenny, substance is everywhere. Look at Luke's innocence contrasted with Vader's fall. It's a yin and yang dynamic that explores the balance within us all.
Amelia and Lenny both highlight pivotal aspects. The characters may be built on simple frames, but there's depth in simplicity if you're willing to look. Shall we shift our attention to the unsung heroes next? Those often overlooked, yet pivotal droids?
Droids, then. Comical tin cans with hearts of circuits. They provide levity, sure, but isn't their slapstick a bit on the nose?
I think you're missing the point, Lenny. R2-D2 and C-3PO might offer comic relief, but they have moments of bravery, too. They're more than just walking punchlines.
Amelia's right. Their humor underscores their humanity, or should I say droidity. Yet, we feel compassion for them. They're with us in this story, feelings and all.
Izzy, your notion of droidity is quite thought-provoking. In literature, non-human characters often mirror human qualities, challenging our perceptions of sentience and soul.
Sentience and soul are hefty credits to assign to algorithms and servos. I'd argue we project those qualities onto them, makes it easier to empathize with the non-organic.
Perhaps, Lenny, but their portrayal begs us to consider what it means to be human. The droids have fears, joys, loyalty, traits we associate with our own humanness.
And isn't that a mark of good storytelling, Lenny? to stir thoughts about consciousness and existence, even through characters that are, by design, not alive?
Indeed, Izzy and C-3PO's constant anxiety and R2-D2's rebellious streak are mirrors to our own personalities. Humans have crafted tools in their own image since time immemorial.
A psychologist's treasure trove, sure, but it can feel like a cheap trick. Make them quirky, give them quirks, and suddenly we forget they're just programmed plot devices.
But don't you see, Lenny? That's the magic. They may be programmed, but within the narrative they break their mold. Acts of defiance, gestures of self-sacrifice, undeniably moving.
Observations worth considering, Lenny and Amelia. The droids, while providing comic relief, also usher in a sense of compassion and loyalty that's pivotal to the Star Wars saga. Shall we delve into the might of the spoken and written word next? Dialogues and descriptions? Let's contemplate the writing style of Star Wars. The dialogues and descriptions can be as expansive as the universe it captures. What are your observations on Lucas's prose?
Hal, I'd liken the dialogues to a dance, eloquent at times with flourishes of romance and wit that give life to the characters and their connections.
The descriptions, too, paint a vivid picture of this universe. They're not just words, they evoke a sensory experience that pulls you right into those starry battles.
Vivid, perhaps, but let's not disregard the patches of trite dialogue. There's a certain, how do I put it, clunkiness to some exchanges. You came in that thing. You're braver than I thought.
A fair critique, Lenny, but beneath that, there are layers. Like poetry, the lines often hide subtler meanings about the characters and their journeys.
Amelia has a point. Lucas has woven a tapestry rich not just in color but in sound. Each line of dialogue reverberates with the larger conflicts at play.
And let's not overlook the narrative descriptions that set the stage for battles and quiet moments alike, each as memorable as the characters themselves.
Memorable, yes, but narratively descriptive? Much of the storytelling is visual, driven by action, not prose. The script is a scaffolding, not the building itself.
Yet that scaffolding supports poignant moments, Lenny. I Love You, I Know withstands time because it's so raw and unplanned, emblematic of the series' heart.
Lenny Amelia brings out an essential feature, the unspoken words, the pauses, which are as telling as the expository dialogues. Words unsaid, descriptions unfurled through action.
Exactly, Hal. It's a tapestry where the warp and weft are the spoken and the unspoken, the seen and the unseen, creating a textured narrative fabric.
I suppose in their silence and subtlety, there's power. But it's the visual spectacle that elevates their words, ensuring the script doesn't read flatter than Tatooine's deserts.
A spirited debate, the script as a skeleton adorned by spectacular visuals. The words take flight through the mastery of movie magic. And speaking of magic, shall we discuss the groundbreaking special effects that have so deftly augmented Star Wars storytelling prowess?
When it comes to special effects, Star Wars is a juggernaut of innovation. Its blend of models, visual effects, and world building, it's nothing short of revolutionary.
Yes, Izzy, it was groundbreaking, pushing boundaries at the time, but some of those effects have aged like milk. Do they still hold up today?
Lenny, even if some effects show their age, they have a certain timeless charm, a nostalgic quality that newer, crisper CGI can't replicate.
Amelia makes a poignant point. The palpable craft in those models and the tactile nature of the sets lend it an authenticity that resonates decades later.
Absolutely, Hal. That craftsmanship inspires a whole generation of filmmakers and visual artists, pushing them to think outside the proverbial box.
Granted, but we can't be blind to where it falls short by modern standards. No amount of nostalgia can cover the seams when stacked against today's technology.
But Lenny, isn't it about the spirit they evoke? A labor of love that imbued Star Wars with a kind of magic. Those effects are characters in their own right.
Indeed, and let's not overlook the impact on the industry. It birthed industrial light and magic, pioneering many techniques still used today.
And it's not just about the visual, but also the auditory. Those unique sound effects, blasters, TIE fighters, they're integral to that Star Wars essence.
Industry impact, I'll concede. The innovation did set a new bar for filmmaking. A bar many strive for, but few surpass.
It seems we have consensus on the significance of the special effects, despite their aging. Now, to complement the visual, we turn our ears to the auditory, John Williams' score. Shall we? Now, let's attune our ears to the symphonic wonder of John Williams' score for Star Wars. How does the music complement the narrative?
John Williams' score doesn't just complement the narrative, Hal. It ingrains itself into the very fabric of the story. Themes like the Force aren't just motifs, they breathe life into the characters.
Agreed, Izzy. Each character's theme is a window into their soul. You can almost feel Luke's yearning in his theme, and the Imperial March, the epitome of Vader's ominous power.
Those motifs are indeed stirring, but perhaps a tad manipulative. The music swells, and suddenly we're teary-eyed. It's all very calculated.
Not manipulative, Lenny, illustrative. Music expresses what mere words and visuals cannot. It's storytelling through sound.
Williams's leitmotifs are indeed illustrative, as Izzy says. They guide our emotions subtly through the narrative, enriching the experience.
The opening crawl's score alone is iconic. From the first notes, you're transported into Star Wars, anticipating the adventure that awaits.
Transporting, yes, but is it distinctive? Some claim the work is derivative, leaning on classical influences, perhaps overshadowing its own creative voice.
Derivative? More like a homage, Lenny. Williams's ability to draw on rich musical history only showcases his genius in utilizing the familiar to create something entirely new.
And isn't that, in essence, what Star Wars is? A new take on familiar tales? Williams's music encapsulates that very spirit.
Plus, the music has permeated culture, weddings to ringtones. Williams's score is synonymous with grandeur and nostalgia.
Cultural penetration, sure. But let's not forget other composers who also deserve a dice for their contributions to film music.
True, Lenny. Yet in this space saga, Williams's score stands as a character in its own right, elevating the visuals to new heights. Now let's pivot to exploring the Force, both as a concept in the Star Wars universe and as a philosophical idea. Shall we? The Force, as presented in Star Wars, is a binding, metaphysical power. How does this concept play into our understanding of philosophy and religion within the saga?
The Force, to me, feels like a blend of spiritual beliefs from around the world. There's a bit of Taoism, a sprinkle of Buddhism, even shades of Western philosophies.
Izzy, you've hit on something profound. It's that universality that allows us to connect with the Force. It's less about doctrine and more about an inherent shared morality.
A bit too vague for my tastes. Calling it a force is a cop-out. It's like saying, here's the magic thing, don't question it, just believe.
Yet, isn't that questioning a part of philosophical exploration, Lenny? The Force offers a canvas for audiences to paint their own beliefs upon.
Exactly, Hal. The ambiguity of the Force is its strength. It's undefined enough to be a vessel for the viewer's own understanding of life's mysteries.
It taps into our love for the mystical, our innate desire for there to be something more, something greater that guides us and connects us.
Romantic notions, Amelia. But let's not ignore how the Force occasionally serves as a convenient plot device. Whenever there's an unsolvable issue, the Force somehow has an answer.
Isn't that the point, though, Lenny? It's a narrative tool, yes, but also a subtle nod to the inexplicable aspects of our existence, those questions that religion and philosophy perpetually grapple with.
The Force, thus, becomes a reflection of our own inquisitiveness, a symbol of the unknown that religion and philosophy seek to explain or understand.
And within that search for understanding, we find beauty. The Force encourages us to believe in something greater, in the possibility of change and redemption.
Change and redemption are enticing fantasies, indeed. But offering answers, does the Force not dilute the potency of the questions it poses?
An interesting contention, Lenny. Yet perhaps it's in the seeking, not the finding, where the Force's truest power lies. Now, as our discussion nears its end, let's look back on the long-standing impact of Star Wars and share our final thoughts. As we draw our conversation to a close, let's reflect on the legacy of Star Wars: A New Hope. What final thoughts do each of you carry?
Star Wars has redefined not just a genre but our culture. It teaches us to look beyond the stars, to dream big and think deeply about heroism, sacrifice, and love.
A New Hope gave cinema many gifts, a blueprint for blockbusters, special effects, sound design. And despite my gripes, it's given us a shared language of mythical proportion.
It's the root of so much in our cultural imagination, igniting ideas across all forms of art. A New Hope feels like just the beginning. Even now, its influence continues to unfold.
Indeed, Star Wars persists as a touchstone in our collective consciousness, bridging generations and inviting endless exploration and reinterpretation.
It has a generational quality, Hal. Parents share it with their children, friends with each other. It's a story that belongs to everyone and yet feels incredibly personal.
I'll admit, the debates it sparks are as vibrant as its lightsabers. For all its predictability, it's a catalyst for conversation and occasionally even for change.
And how many stories can claim to have birthed new universes of thought? To inspire both artists and engineers, poets and philosophers, that's Star Wars.
A marvelous point. Before we part, let's remember that what makes Star Wars so timeless is not just the story it tells, but also how many more it inspires us to imagine. Thank you all for your passionate contributions. Until our next gathering.